A long time ago, back at the end of the 20th century, developers were convinced that full-motion video was going to revolutionize gaming forever. This led to us trapping blood-sucking vampires in Night Trap, investigating crime scenes with Sherlock Holmes, and even trying to assemble a music video for Marky Mark. Sure, some of these were good and even introduced us to new ways to play games. But did they change gaming forever? No, of course not. Gamers continued to prefer pixel graphics and 3D characters made out of crude polygons. Now, 30 years later, there's mounting evidence that maybe the people behind the insipid Make My Video games from the 1990s were actually onto something, because the new game Not For Broadcast is a satirical roller coaster ride that thoroughly and completely fulfills the promise of those early FMV games. It may not revolutionize gaming forever, but I have a hunch that it's going to be remembered for being a landmark experience that changed people's perception on what gaming can be. Yeah, it's that good. Not For Broadcast puts you in the shoes of Alex Winston, a janitor who gets roped into working the control board at a nightly news show on Channel 1. Alex is married with a pair of teenagers and is barely scraping by on a janitor's salary. So the new gig controlling a prestigious TV program could lead to big things. But first, he needs to learn how to work that board, which mostly consists of cutting between 4 video feeds, adjusting the audio, loading commercial breaks, fiddling with the reception, and most importantly, making sure that no bad words slip through to the live broadcast. All this is fairly straightforward at first and comes down to just common sense. I mean, just from watching television, you understand that the audience is going to get bored if you don't change angles every so often. So you're going to want to switch between the camera feeds to get close-ups and a bunch of reaction shots. You'll quickly find out that a lot of your job comes down to choosing the graphics to go with the story and what commercials are the best fit for your audience. And, assuming you follow the rules and create an entertaining show, the audience will tune in and you'll be rewarded with lots of bonuses and money. Of course, it's not going to stay that simple. I mean that from both the story and gameplay perspective, too. You see, I alluded to it at the start, but this is a sharp satire that skewers the media, the government, big business, commercialism, and the sometimes blurry lines between news and entertainment. Alex gets hired just as a new authoritarian government is taking control, so the themes of media censorship and biased framing are front and center. It doesn't take long before Not For Broadcast gets dark. While it has a biting sense of humor, the story isn't afraid to get serious and tense. This can come in the form of war coverage or dealing with a band of anti-authoritarian freedom fighters known as Distrust. There are also scenarios ripped straight out of the headlines, such as when you have to connect with remote feeds because of a government-enforced lockdown. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, because this story goes in a number of crazy directions that I refuse to spoil. You're gonna be covering a number of genuinely shocking moments, all of which you'll immediately want to talk about. Yeah, let me tell you, the final act of this game is something to behold. At the same time, Not For Broadcast also has a lot of lighter moments. This is a game that somehow manages to poke fun at every single news convention. From the man-on-the-street interviews to a whole cooking segment with a foul-mouthed Gordon Ramsay-type chef. There are interviews with both world leaders and, of course, the newest boy bands, as well as hilarious sports coverage, a red carpet movie premiere, an awards show, and some of the cheesiest live theater that you're ever gonna see. It's just public access quality. It's glorious. Oh, and did I mention that the game is filled with musical acts? From a rebellious rap song to show tunes to a vapid Ariana Grande wannabe, Not For Broadcast is filled with a surprising amount of original music. Hell, it even has an end credit song that rivals Still Alive from Portal. Now, one of the best decisions this game makes is to show you what happens over the course of a long period of time. I went in expecting the story to play out over, I don't know, an especially tumultuous week or maybe a month or two. But Not for Broadcast actually takes place over 2,600 days. That's more than 7 years. That's enough time to show you the ramifications of your decisions. Actions that seemed right and justified at the time come back to haunt you, both in a personal and professional sense. The game does a good job of making you doubt your decisions, and even allows you to hear from people who have completely different points of view. What feels so black and white at the time has a funny way of becoming gray and nuanced over the next few years. And this game, well, lets you just sit with that. The other reason why all this works so well is because the game is instantly fun to play. The basics are not only easy to learn, but also just make a lot of sense. Switching between the different video feeds and programming the commercials is surprisingly satisfying, and this game makes you feel like you're really in control of the show. At the same time, it's constantly throwing new challenges at you. You'll have to deal with malfunctioning equipment, adjusting a fan to make sure the board doesn't overheat, political censorship, a busted VCR, and even an army of sentient toys trying to interfere with the signal. Actually, on second thought, the less said about that, the better. The point I'm trying to make is that the game is constantly throwing new obstacles in front of you and forcing you to always stay on your toes. And things get especially tricky when you're asked to deal with 2 or maybe 3 of these problems at once. There will be times when you'll need to adjust the reception while simultaneously cutting out the swear words before they hit the live broadcast. And hey, don't forget about sweetening the show with artificial laughter and maybe some booing. We're given a lot of power to shape the way the news looks and sounds, all in the hopes of earning high ratings in the key demo and, who knows, maybe even changing some minds. Now, while most of the game sits you down in front of the control board, much of Alex's story takes place between the episodes. We learn about the marriage, kids, and struggles through short story moments that'll often give the player choices between actions and dialogue options. It's here where we see the ramifications of Alex's decisions and how the new authoritarian government has changed day-to-day life. Between what happens live on the news and these short personal bits, Not for Broadcast gives you a lot to chew on. It also gives you a lot of incentive to make different choices to see how Alex's life would change. That said, I feel like those choose-your-own-adventure bits are the weakest part of the game. While I liked getting the ground-level understanding of how things have changed over the years, I gotta be honest, I found myself impatiently waiting to get back to controlling the news. It doesn't help that there are times when you have to sit through 6 or 7 of these story bits in a row, all of them with downbeat music and depressing visuals. This is done on purpose, of course, and I'm ultimately glad it's there, but all I wanted to do was get back to work. My other complaint has to do with the casting. Don't get me wrong, I think everybody does an excellent job, especially the actress that plays Megan Wolf, the co-host on the nightly news. They do a good job of making her look different and aging her up as the years go on. However, I'm less convinced about her male counterpart, Jeremy Donaldson, who looks a little too young to be hosting a national news show. I don't know, perhaps this is a regional thing, but I'm used to seeing older men host the news. The actor playing Jeremy looks like he's, in his late 20s, which I gotta be honest, I found a bit distracting at first. Thankfully, his performance won me over by the end, even if I found it hard to take him seriously as a seasoned news anchor. Look, the truth is, the performances are great across the board. The game is filled with dozens of colorful characters, many of which get to come back multiple times throughout the years. You can tell that everybody's having a lot of fun, even when a few of them go way over the top. The comedy writing is also spot on, and just about every sketch lands. And even in the moments when the game goes for an obvious joke, they always seem to find a way to subvert expectations and take it in a completely different direction. The satire works because it's accurate and of its time. It's the kind of game that'll start important conversations and keep you thinking for a long time to come. It'll also make you want to work in a television control room. Or maybe that's just me. Breaking news, Not for Broadcast proves that satire can be done in video games. This is a hilarious and often biting look at the blurring of the lines between news and entertainment. The colorful cast of characters and expert writing suck us into an alternate world with eerily similar problems in TV shows, allowing us to shape the news and control the masses through propaganda. Dark, subversive, and always on point, this is the kind of satire that could only be done as a video game. Not for Broadcast is what Don't Look Up wishes it could be. Hey, thanks for watching our review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now, here's the question I have for you. What is your favorite full-motion video game? I mean, there have been a lot of really good FMV games released recently. Plus, older games that, only used it for cinemas and such. Let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back later this week with a ninja-themed episode of Game Over, as well as a look at the very first issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly. If that sounds good to you, then I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,